Ghost Story is one of the most unique movies I've watched this year. And I'm somewhere on the fence of very creative, slow pacing, slow burner, creative, boring at times, but so boring it's entertaining, if that makes sense. A Ghost Story is a 2017 A24 film starring Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. One of the most standout things about this film is the cinematography, the framing, and by framing I mean it cropping the way it did in some A24 fashion. It's like the old VHS tape style framing. And I don't know if it was converted to film or shot on film, but it has that old style grainy film look as well that I really love. And it takes a minimalistic approach, telling a story about love, loss, time, existing. It plays with the thoughts about higher powers, and it's really a profound and emotional roller coaster of an experience. So if you guys are with me, let's break this baby down. I don't remember names in this film because, and looking at the cast here, Casey is labeled as C and Rooney is M. And just to deter any kind of confusion, I'm just gonna call them Casey and Rooney, just to make things easier. The movie opens up with Casey and Rooney spooning on the couch, talking about how when Rooney was a child, she used to leave these notes at houses to remind herself what she liked and to highlight some of her favorite memories when she was a child, in hopes of one day she would go back there and she would remember all of them, kind of like a time capsule. Although she mentioned that she never actually went back to them old places. And one of the biggest pros about this movie is again the cinematography. I praise cinematography a lot, but this one is so creative, and this one really tells an emotional story throughout this movie. The framing, the lighting, I'm talking about everything is almost perfect to a T. But when you're watching this film, one odd thing is it has these really long, drawn out scenes. I'm talking about long ass fucking scenes. To the point where you're like, okay, what am I waiting for? Can we go to the next scene? But in the back of your mind, you're like, man, this is different. In my head, I was really riding the fence on if I actually enjoyed it or not. But in the end, yes, I did end up liking it because I think it's a really compelling staple in the story that it's trying to tell. So one small important detail I need to mention that's going to come into play later if you haven't seen the film. If you have, you know where I'm going with this. They're spooning in bed from a top-down view. They're just snuggling, being intimate with each other. And this scene, and I must say, from this point on, throughout probably the next 20 to 25 minutes of the film, there is no cinematic music whatsoever. I'm talking about one of the strong points they was able to tell in the story is telling an emotional story through silence. So props to you, man. But yes, we get this very long shot of them spooning in bed, not saying a word, just being intimate with each other. And you're waiting for something to happen, and you're waiting for something to happen, and you're waiting for something to happen. And then finally, bing, you hear a piano. So they rush in there, investigate the house. They find nothing, they go back to bed. The next morning, it opens up with a shot from the house where you see like this smoke and fog. And you're like, that looks like, is somebody burning something or what? And then the camera pans again with no music, no kind of eerie music, no kind of melancholy music, no kind of sad music, nothing. It just pans over and you see Casey's character dead. And then it jump cuts to Rooney going to the morgue because she has to identify the body of Casey. And this is another really drawn out scene. She goes in there for a moment, she asks for a moment by themselves. She has her moment, she pulls the blanket back on him, leaves, and then it's just a fucking mean minute before anything happens. You're like, is somebody gonna walk in, or is he gonna lift up? What's gonna go on? And again, he finally does lift up. Again, no music whatsoever. And one thing I'm ashamed of to say is that throughout my almost 30 years of living, it never dawned on me why ghosts are portrayed the way they are. He stands up and he has like little eye cuts. It took this long to dawn on me that the reason ghosts wear sheets is because they are wrapped in sheets at the morgue. And you may think I'm a dumbass, and I probably am, but I have never once put one and one together like that until I watched this fucking film. When you first see Casey as a ghost, again, throughout this whole movie, he doesn't say a word or anything. You may think in the back of your mind that it's kind of corny because he's wearing some kind of Party City sheet with fucking bare minimum eye holes, but they really do utilize this look to paint the picture of sad. There are some shots where it's really eerie, and I'll explain those in a minute, but that look really complements the movie and what they're trying to tell here. So Casey's just walking through the hospital, trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and has shots of him walking home, and he gets there before Rooney does. And I kind of laughed at first because when he's standing in the house, it's just awkward. Like, it's just him standing completely still in the house, standing up in this fucking, like this Halloween Michael Myers Bob ghost sheet. But it really grew on me because it's telling like a soul-searching story of him trying to find closure. Because you think this movie might be about the love story between him and Rooney. But in all actuality, their relationship in this movie is just a small piece of the puzzle. I mean, this journeys through, again, religious beliefs, existence, all kinds of things. Again, the silence is a strong point that was able to convey a lot of emotion and tell the storytelling and add so much depth to it with just silence. Like, how hard is that to do? It didn't follow the template. This movie did its own thing, and I was kind of weary of it at first, but I appreciated it so much more towards the end of the movie. So I have to talk about the elephant in the room here. When I watched this movie, I didn't see any kind of introduction to it. I didn't see a trailer or anything. I just saw this cover picture of a ghost in the field saying a ghost story. So I was like, you know what? It says A24. Fuck it, I'll watch it. They're normally pretty damn creative with what they bring to the table. Throughout the past, I have had not a whole lot of high hopes when it comes to Rooney Mara's performance in movies. And before I get blasted in the comments, the only thing I really know her from is the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, in which I personally think that, for one, that movie's just dog shit. But I think she contributes to that as well, because I found out she had absolutely no range in that movie. It was just Ben Stein, one emotion, Darth Vader, one face for every emotion kind of thing. But she proved to me in this movie that she has range. And she did this with very minimalistic dialogue and through silence. I don't know much of any of her other work. Like, I know she has a role in A Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, and she has some pretty impressive accolades. And I pat her on the back for that, because seeing her performance here made me feel a lot better about this movie. Cause I was like, yeah, last time I saw you, this didn't turn out too well. But her and Casey both really, I think, upped the ante for me in this movie. So I just wanted to make that disclaimer. There's a scene where Rooney comes home and one of her friends has left her a sympathetic dish, like the common comedic act of giving somebody food when somebody passes away. She does that and she goes home and things are just awkward, right? Because if you've ever lost somebody close to you, and I can relate to this plenty, you go home and the house is just, it's awkward, it's quiet. So you start doing things to take your mind off stuff, right? So she's in there, things are awkward, things are quiet. She sees the note, she's like, okay, she throws it away. She starts washing dishes. She starts pulling whatnots and shit off and starts washing them. And eventually she's like, fuck it, I'm gonna eat this. And this is one of the longest shots of the movie. Again, zero dialogue. She's sitting there, and she's sitting down on the floor against the counter, just eating this fucking pie, right? I'm talking about for a long fucking time. But at the same time, she is subtly crying like while she's eating. And this is not a close-up shot. It's like a medium shot, like you can see her whole body. You can see tears falling off of her nose. She's just sitting there eating emotionally. It was a stunning visual that really captured, again, the turning tables, for my opinion, about Rooney Mara. And Casey as a ghost is just sitting there watching her every move. And again, it's just awkward, but the more it drags on, the more heartbreaking it gets. Another very interesting thing about this movie is Casey looks out the window and sees another ghost in the other house, and they're able to communicate with each other. Again, zero dialogue, but you read through subtitles, so I guess they have some kind of telekinetic ghost communication system there. But you're reading the dialogue and it's sad because the ghost is like, who's there? And Casey's like, it's just me. And then the other ghost across the street is like, I'm waiting for somebody. And Casey's like, who? And the ghost is like, I don't remember. So they've been there for so long that it's not even funny. Like, it's really fucking sad. And then the movie goes through a sequence where it kind of changes the mood up a little bit. Casey is this musician and he had made this song. And they have this really cool sequence where Rooney's listening to it on the floor, you know, being sentimental about it. And it's switching through timeline of the past when she first heard it the first time and the present time when she's down and out about it. I thought that was a great, just tiny, powerful scene there to really showcase the music. And the music, the song, is a very powerful, emotional song. Another thing I really love about A24 movies that they're really good at, I think, is transitional shots. It comes to the point where she starts seeing somebody else. She's moving out of the house. So through every doorway you see, it's just a transitional shot for her packing things up. But the last thing she does is she writes a note and she sticks it in a wall, pertaining to the things that she used to do that she was explaining to Casey in the opening scene. So Casey is spending a lot of his time trying to get that note out because she put it in this little crack in the wall and she painted over it. So in a lot of scenes in this movie, he's sitting there scratching on the wall trying to get that note to see what it says. And again, another creative thing they do in this movie a lot is transitional shots that turn into time jumps. If you haven't seen the movie, it's so hard to explain. As soon as Rooney walks out the door, he turns back and he's scratching. Another family comes in, right? But the way it's shot, you can tell it was sometime later. So he's walking through because he's curious about who's moving to his house, naturally. But every time he walks through a room, it jumps like a few weeks. It's Christmas time and then it's a different holiday. I guess he gets really pissed off because he fucking goes ham in that house. He knocks over pictures, throwing glasses of milk, throwing fucking plates across the wall. And then finally they move out and another big time jump happens as he's trying to get that letter out of the crevice. Another cool scene they have is there's this party scene. And before I go into the party scene with the awesome dialogue, some of the eeriest shots happen within the time that family moves in because he's basically haunting these kids. Well, he's not doing anything destructive or trying to harm them, but the shots of the kids, like seeing him in the hallway and like flashing red lights and shit, it's just, you would think this costume is fucking stupid looking, but in these shots, it's like, dude, that's fucking creepy. So that family moves out, they have another great time jump transitional shot, and they're having this big party scene, and this guy has this speech where he does, and he has great dialogue. The writing on this dialogue is great. He's talking about the perception of time, love, life, death. No matter what you do in this life, no matter what you create, no matter how many people remember you, no matter how long they remember you, the universe is gonna end and history would just repeat itself. I'm summarizing that up a lot. But he has this long, drawn out, great dialogue where he explains his concept of life, death, higher beliefs, and whatnot. You should really check it out. So finally he walks back toward the room and the house is now dilapidated. And he's sitting there scratching at that fucking crevice because he wants to get that note. As soon as he gets a hold of that note and tries to pull it out, boom! They're tearing the fucking house down. So he didn't get the chance to get the note. Now, not only are they tearing that house down, they're also tearing down the neighbor's house. If you remember what I said about the neighbor, there's also a ghost in there. So these two ghosts they're sitting in the center of their fucking destroyed house, out in the middle of the field, because they don't know what's going on. It's not out of their control. And the one scene that really sticks out to me throughout all the creative and stunning visuals, all the creative ideas, all the scenes betraying this beauty and emptiness, is they have one last conversation with each other where the ghost next door turns to Casey and says, "I don't think they're coming," and disappears like the sheet just falls. That conveys so much emotion there because the ghost has been waiting there for God knows how long, right? And this movie, I think, is trying to explain the understanding of life, death, closure, and letting go. So Casey's just standing there, and eventually he's just going through time at a heavy fucking rate. Like they start building this concrete slab up where the home used to be. Eventually there's a full-blown business there. And you can see this is hundreds of years into the future. And so he jumps off the skyscraper roof, and you think that would be the end of the movie. It is not the end of the movie. Instead, he jumps back to just like this pilgrimage to the spot where the house is. And you see this family of pilgrims come, and they're about to build this house there. And then they get killed by Indians, which I'm assuming is Indians because of their unique war cry. And I say that because I am from Indian heritage. My grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee Indian, and they slaughtered the pilgrims. But this is where I caught on to where the movie was going. Spoiler alert, this is a time loop because it's kind of confusing because Casey goes through everything again. It goes back to the point where him and Rooney are touring the house, to where they buy the house, to that night in the beginning where they had the piano. That was him sitting down, making that noise on the piano. And one of the weirdest things that I think in the movie, he's even watching himself after his death as a ghost. So he's sitting there watching himself as a different ghost going throughout this timeline. I'm just like, wow, dude, this shit is wild. And it's a beautiful transition, this ending, because they bring back that song that Rooney was listening to that Casey created for her. But they have like this very powerful vocal harmony version of it. He's watching Rooney leave once again. He's watching himself as a ghost looking out the window, looking at his other ghost, because I guess he's living through this moment twice for some fucking reason. He finally finds the note, gets it out of the crevice, he opens it up, and the sheet falls. He's gone. He let go. Yeah, this movie will leave you with a sense of sorrow, a sense of wonder, but it is very artful and introspective at the same time. There's so much storytelling that enhances the mood and the atmosphere of this movie. The beauty in the emptiness of existence. It's thought-provoking and really a soulful exploration of Casey's journey throughout his life, throughout his relationship, how the movie goes beyond their relationship. This movie is about way more than what their relationship was. It's just about existing, about what it means to be human, about getting closure in the afterlife. Again, the slow burn in the beginning, I feel like is going to detour some people. And this movie is not going to be for everybody, I tell you, because when I say it's strange, it's strange at times. It does not follow the template of what you think a cinematic movie would be. But it did its own thing. It's its own product. I feel like it's a really good piece of art. If I had to rate this movie, I'm gonna give this movie an 8 out of 10. Like, I really enjoyed this movie. I was on the fence about it again at first, but it really grew on me, and this is gonna stick with me for a while. It's just one of those classic movies that is strange, but it just reminds you to cherish every moment you have and to really cherish your family and friends, because this is your only rodeo, and we don't know what's on the other side. But at the end of the day, in my book, this is another A24 win for the books. But that's gonna wrap this video up, guys. Thank you so much for taking part of your day to kick it with me. I promise you, I really do appreciate it. Tell me your thoughts on this movie. I would love to sit here and chat about it. But until next time, guys, adios.